to be smart with your money. Growing up, especially with boomer parents, they don't really talk about serious subjects, especially money. They just give you the generic, like, always save, don't spend money on stupid things. But they don't tell you exactly how to do that, you know? They don't tell you the specifics on, like, how to open a credit card, why you should have a credit card, the proper way to use a credit card, all those types of things that prepare you for the real world. And they especially don't teach you that in school. They don't teach anything about finances, anything about the truth about going into debt or taking out student loans, or what that really means for your financial future. A lot of us have to learn through personal experiences. So here are 10 money habits that I've learned at 28 years old. The first habit that I wish that I had learned earlier was how to actually create a budget. I feel like creating a budget is kind of the first real step in creating the foundation of being smart with your money. And I think the first step is to really look at your fixed expenses, any other, debts or loans you have, minimum payments on anything. Take a look at all of that separately. Those are the things that you're gonna need to pay for every single month. Car insurance, rent, all that stuff in one section. Add that up, see what that number comes to, and then look at your total average income for the month. Subtract your fixed expenses, and then that's the money that you have left over. That's the money that you could decide, hey, I want to budget, for example, $20 for coffee. I want to budget $20 for makeup. The tricky thing is sticking to that budget and making sure that you're not just overspending because you can or you want to. Like, hey, I know I really want this one thing that's like $100. You need to take a look at your budget. Or you do that, take money from other categories. Say you want something that is $100. Maybe you don't spend the $20 on coffee that month. Like, make room for things in your budget if you really want them, but also just be realistic with yourself and try to really stick to the budget. This is the budget tracker that I have recently been using to track all of my expenses. So up in this corner, you can put maybe your income, your expected income, and then when you go down here, this is where you can budget for any miscellaneous categories such as groceries, eating out, gas, all of that, etc. I really enjoy this budget template, and I will definitely link this down below if you are interested in getting this. It has really helped me stay on track with all of my finances, and it just is nice that everything is in this one area that I can visually look at, has some nice graphs and things like that, but it is nice that everything is kind of all together on this one format. My next money habit that I definitely wish I knew earlier was to build a strong emergency fund. I feel like you hear this word a lot thrown around on like social media or like any other finance platforms, but the truth really is that it is important to have, because when push comes to shove and you need money like for an emergency, so you need to get your car fixed or something comes up with like a medical bill, you want to be able to pay for those things without going further into debt. I never really realized how important that was until something like that does come up and you are like, oh my god, I don't have the money for it. I definitely think the standard is to have like 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund, and I highly suggest putting them in a high yield savings account. That way at least that money is also working for you and getting some interest while you're sitting and waiting for it, or waiting to use it if you ever have to use it. So again, you can use, like, first step was to look at your fixed monthly expenses. You should look at that number and like multiply that by 3 or 6 or however many months you would feel comfortable having in an emergency fund. Again, just in case, say you were to lose your job for whatever reason, you would have a buffer to be able to feel comfortable while maybe looking for a new job. That's the importance of an emergency fund. The next habit that I've learned in my 20s is to pay off your debt. Debt is just kind of this weight that is lingering over you, and the sooner you pay it off, the sooner that you'll have that extra money free up that you can use to work for you or save for any other bigger goals that you have, rather than paying off debt for things that you probably bought that aren't even like relevant to you anymore. Plus, you want to pay off your debt because you don't want to be paying interest on anything, because that's kind of just a waste of your money. Paying interest is so frustrating. You're owing the money bank because you owe them money already, kind of situation. So one suggestion that I do have, if you have a credit card that is a high balance and you think it's going to take you a good amount of time to pay it off, I would highly suggest looking into a balance transfer card. Likely you'll get a 0% interest rate for maybe 18 months. I think I did that once and I got 18 months. So I transferred my one big balance credit card. Actually, I transferred 2 credit cards to one balance transfer card, and I had 0% interest for 18 months so that I could pay that down without any interest. The only thing to keep in mind with that is, one, you are technically opening a new credit card, so if that's not something you want to do, or you think it's going to affect your credit score, or you maybe won't get approved for it, then that might not be the option for you. And 2, there is just one fee when you transfer the money onto this card, but then you don't get any monthly interest when it is finally on this card. But you do get paid, or you do pay like a 3 or 5% transfer fee when it goes to this card. But it is definitely a good option when you feel like you're kind of drowning when you have credit card debt, to transfer it to this card where you're not getting any extra monthly interest. The next habit kind of goes along with the previous one, and that is to learn how to properly use your credit card. Credit cards actually can be beneficial if you know how to use them properly. From experience, when I first got my credit cards, they definitely got out of control. I think at one point I was up to maybe $10,000 in credit card debt. And it really takes you a long time to dig out of that kind of credit card debt. So in order to learn how to use it properly, I feel like the best way to explain it is to just pretend that it's like a debit card. It's easier said than done, because sometimes you get into the mindset of like, oh, well, it is a credit card, so I don't really need the money now. I can just put it on the credit card and pay it back eventually. Yes, you can do that. But if you do treat it like a true debit card and pay everything off like almost immediately, or at least like at the end of the month, you have the money to pay everything off, that is where it's going to be beneficial to you. Because actually having a credit card isn't bad, because one, a lot of them have some sort of points and reward system. For example, I use Chase Sapphire Preferred card, so I use that to get a lot of travel points that I can use towards flights. And I have gotten probably 3 or 4 flights for free at this point, but just based on using my card for points. But you also don't want to just buy stuff to buy stuff for points. It's more, you want to use your credit card just for things that you were gonna buy anyway, like groceries or gas, whatever. Any monthly regular expenses, I put subscriptions on there too, because I get like 3 times the points. But again, that is stuff that I would be buying anyway. It's not like I'm just buying random stuff because, ooh, I get credit card points. Like, no, that kind of goes against it. There is this statistic, I guess, with having a credit card that like you are more likely to spend more money. And that probably is true, because at least you know that it's, you can swipe that card no matter what, and like you don't need to have that money right now. That is where it gets you into trouble. Also though, with a credit card, I feel like in general you probably should have one, especially in the United States, because 1, you need to build your credit. 2, it is nice to have just in case of emergencies. Like, say for some reason you don't have enough to cover whatever emergency came up with your emergency fund. It is nice to have some sort of line of credit just in case, God forbid, you owe a ton of money on something. I don't know. Or, for example, maybe you're renting out the Airbnb for you and your friends, but you don't have all of the money ahead of time. Like, people are paying you back for this rental, but you don't have the money up front to pay for it. I don't know. I feel like things like that makes sense to me in my head, and it's not like, again, it's not the worst thing in the world to have a credit card. It's also, there's a lot more protection with a credit card. For example, when you buy things online, say your information gets hacked or stolen, It's easier to fight those, like put in a claim and fight those charges if it's not you on a credit card versus a debit card. Hard to explain, but there's more protection and safety with like a credit card versus a debit card when it comes to like fraud. My next habit is something that I'm actually still kind of working on myself, and that is investing and learning how to invest properly. Investing is definitely very intimidating and scary because you don't want to lose your money, and no one really teaches you properly how to invest or where to, or like what to invest in, and I don't really have those answers, but I do know that it is important to invest young, because then the money has more time to work for you. And that is the most important thing with investing, is just time. I think it's important to realize that not, sometimes people think investing and they think, Wall Street, Bitcoin, things like that. That's not what investing really is. There's definitely lower risk options for you to get into the market and start investing. I think the first step for investing is definitely opening up a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is just a secondary retirement account that you're putting money in yourself, after post-tax money from your salary. You put money into this account and then you can invest it. You have to invest it yourself. If you're gonna open a Roth IRA, I would definitely look into some more in-depth videos on how to do it properly and invest properly. But what I do is invest it into the S&P 500 or an index fund, or some kind of target fund that are typically low risk and have a certain percent rate of return every single year. And that way you're kind of investing safely, but it also has a lot of time to grow. And this is a good account to have because it's money that you can take out when you're retired and it won't get taxed, unlike your 401k, because it's the money you're putting money into that has already been taxed essentially. So it's just another retirement account. It's one that has some benefits and perks. You can only put a certain amount into it every year, but it is a way that you can start investing a little bit for your future. The next money habit I have is to live below your means. I think this is an important reminder, especially in this day and age because of social media. I feel like we really live in an era of overconsumption and just always seeing people who have products that they're pushing, or having the latest trending items, or even it's perceived to be trending, even though these influencers specifically are being paid to talk about these items. I think it's just a good reminder to really truly realize that you don't need everything that people that you see on the internet have. You don't. Yeah, I just feel like there's no need to feel like you need to keep up with everyone else and have the latest things. Living below your means doesn't mean eating 20-cent ramen every single day. No, it just means having a budget, sticking to it, and not overspending on things, not just getting a new car because your coworker got a new car. It's taking a look at your overall financial situation and realizing hey, this is what I can afford, this is what I can't afford. I can't always have what I want. Maybe you can save up for something that these influencers are promoting, but just because they have it right now doesn't mean that you need it right now. I'm on habit number 7, and that is to just overall have a savings plan. You want to make sure that you're at least saving money pretty regularly, because if you're not saving any money, that means that you're basically spending it all, if that makes any sense, or it's going somewhere and you're not saving anything. Because I feel like even if, related to the last one, if you're investing your money, that is good, but I do think it's important to have some sort of regular savings too, specifically also not really your emergency fund, but it's better to have a savings account than all of your money into investments too, because you want some liquid form of cash, which basically means more accessible. Because if your money's tied up in the stock market, you have to then sell the stocks. That takes time. Get the money sent to you. That takes time. I feel like you want to just make sure that you have a savings plan, because if you don't have some sort of plan for your money, then it's just gonna go, it might go places that you don't want it to. being spent. From personal experience in this realm, I feel like it's really helpful to have some sort of goal, especially like I'm married, so me and my husband have like shared goals. For example, when we were planning our wedding, you know, we had a goal, we had a specific number that we wanted to reach, and we knew we need to save this amount every single month. And right now it's saving for a down payment on a house. We know that we want to start looking maybe next March. All right, we have this many months, this is what we want to save, let's put this amount away every single month for savings. I feel like it helps when you have some sort of goal, like, and then when we get a house, maybe it'll be like, we want to redo the kitchen, so let's save money every month for that. Let's save money for a vacation. This could also be linked to like having a sinking fund for certain things, like just having a plan, like saving for, a lot of people have a like pet sinking fund in case something happens and they need to go to the vet, or vacation sinking fund so that they're saving for vacations, you know, holiday and gift sinking funds so they're saving for any, you know, Christmas gifts that they want to buy. That way, again, they're planned ahead to have this money for Christmas or vacation. It just makes a lot more sense to have some sort of saving plan than, you know, come Christmas you're like, oh, I need to buy $500 worth of gifts, but I don't have any of that money saved. Having a money savings plan just sets you up in a better financial situation when things come up. The next money habit that I have is tracking your spending. I recently started doing this last year, and I showed you guys the budget template that I've been using. It is so helpful and very eye-opening because tracking everything really just keeps you accountable, and it shows you like visually what you're spending and where your money's going. Because sometimes you don't realize in a month, like maybe you went to Sephora twice, and you know, obviously when you go to Sephora you spend like $100 every time, and then you don't realize that, oh wait, I spent like $250 on makeup this month. Like, that's crazy. So it just helps keep you on track and realize like, hey, this is where my money's going, this is where I want it to be going. Maybe I can reevaluate. But yeah, I feel like tracking definitely helps keep you, like, makes you more aware of where you're overspending and where you can cut back, and just makes you a little more intentional with your spending rather than impulse spending. Habit number 9 is to keep your expenses low. If you're trying to pay off debt or save, especially when you're young or you're in your 20s, you want to find ways to keep your monthly expenses low. Again, through social media, it's so easy to look at everyone else and be like, oh my god, they live in the nicest apartment complex, or they have all these amenities, they have the nicest car. Yes, you don't need those things. You don't know what kind of financial situation they're in, that they're able to afford these things, or maybe they're pretending that they can afford these things and they really can't. You don't really know, but you need to be honest with yourself and take a look and say, do I really need to live in the most nice, like, fancy luxury apartment complex? Probably not. Unless you're making a ton of money, then maybe you can. But again, the average rule of thumb is to not spend more than 30% of your income on like your rent or mortgage, any kind of housing. Again, take a look at your expected monthly income, times that by 0.3, see what that number is, and try to find something that is within that range. Obviously, I know that that's easier said than done these days because of the housing market, and the rental market is actually insane. You know, another good option is to realize, you know, when you're young, it's okay to live with roommates or, you know, your significant other or even your parents. Find someone that you can split the expenses with, that, or even multiple people, or even if you live with your parents. I know that it may seem like you know, you don't want to live with your parents. Trust me, if you can live there rent-free, do it for as long as you can to save money until you're ready to move out. Specifically this day and age, if you can find a way to just lower your overall monthly expenses, definitely do it. Some other examples that maybe aren't so extreme is just to take a look at some of your subscriptions, cancel any that you don't use or seem like kind of crazy expensive. Like, just get rid of any of those. Maybe switch to a different like phone provider, Wi-Fi provider, anything like that. Car insurance, if you can find a better rate. Anything that will help cut down your monthly expenses if you really are struggling. Last habit that I've learned in my late 20s is to just have regular check-ins with yourself, and especially too if you are married or have a long-term like significant other, check in with them as well. Make sure you're on the same trajectory, have the same goals, are working towards the same goals. Having regular check-ins, I feel like, definitely helps keep you on track, accountable, and I think it just keeps you motivated. Like when you see that you're making progress towards your goals. For example, like when I was paying off my student loans, seeing that progress every month was super motivating and helped keep me like wanting to focus on paying those off and like stick to my budget more, because then I knew that I could have extra money even to put towards paying off my student loans. But I think sitting down, being honest with yourself, taking a look at the big picture, you know, sometimes is really what you need. Even if you know that you overspent that month, looking at it, actually, you know, seeing where you made mistakes or overspent is gonna just help you in the long run, instead of just ignoring it, trying to forget that you spent that money. And it just makes you more aware of your overall financial situation in general and make more informed decisions with your money. So those are the 10 money habits that I've learned at 28 years old, and hopefully this video was helpful in some way. If you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer. Again, I'm not a financial expert in any means. I just really enjoy learning about my personal finances the last few years and kind of getting my financial situation in order. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, definitely like and subscribe. Follow along for more videos like this, and we'll see you guys in the next video.